Welcome back to Lobby Concessionals, the movie podcast where nobody's right and everybody's wrong. I'm Parker, and that's Brendon. Follow us along on YouTube and Instagram, and I already said YouTube, and
that's
Facebook.
it. That's all we need. Just look at the links below.
Yeah, the links. Check the.
We also have a really fancy new subscribe button that should be right there.
Man, it's going to be the opposite, isn't it? You're going to be pointing to the wrong corner.
No, it's right here. It should be right here.
Oh, it is. It's right where that can is.
Yeah, it's right.
You nailed it.
The can. Where'd that can come from?
Speaking of,
God, we're professionals.
we're going to talk about A24 today, and so in that
again?
We are. Yeah. You have to try. So in that vein, we bring in our resident A24 expert, Connor. Welcome back to the show.
Yes, again, Brendon. Yes, again. So much to unpack.
Yeah, no kidding. So I think it would have been 4 days ago. On Thursday, we talked about the Lighthouse. And yeah, so I wanted to go into a little bit more about this whole studio. Frankly, I was initially considering doing this as an objectively wrong for me because I don't get the hype. They have put out some good things and some very good things. But I think what it really comes down to for me is no one gets hyped about a studio other than A24. Like, this is the one studio where people get stoked about.
Marvel.
I think there's an argument to be made for a couple of small ones too.
Okay, no, the Marvel point, first of all, needs to be addressed because you're right.
We need to say that at the beginning.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, no, actually, that's I can't even refute that. People do get excited about the Marvel, yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Really last,
You guys want to name some? I've never heard of them.
What's a Marvel?
Yeah, examples of some Marvel movies.
I think probably one of their best is Thor: The Dark World. That was the most recognizable one. Yeah. Or the Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton.
I like that.
That
one.
Yeah,
it's actually not bad.
I really don't mind it, but people forget that it's part of the.
Yeah,
MCU.
fair enough.
Is it better than the one with Eric Bana?
Yes, in my opinion.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Ooh, big Ang Lee guy, huh?
I am a big Ang Lee guy. I'm also a big Eric Bana guy.
Oh, that's fair.
Right.
Maybe.
And I easily would take Jennifer Connelly over Liv Tyler.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna be alone on that take, honestly.
Let's not go down this road.
Yeah, no, we're moving on.
We'll do an objective.
Back to A24.
We'll do an objective wrong on Ang Lee's
studios that people get hyped about.
Yeah, so you're right. Marvel is a thing, but other than that, it's just A24.
I would argue that Blumhouse gets a lot of play.
So I could see it. I could potentially see it. I think the difference is. Sorry, hold up. Before we get into this, that's further down the line.
Yeah.
Well, Connor,
you left it open.
I did leave it open. You're right, Connor. Given that you are our A24 specialist, what would you say? Like, what drives you to A24? What is it about that studio that makes you excited?
Ooh, that's a tough one. Okay, maybe I have more than one answer. Track record.
Okay, that's fair.
For me, they have a proven track record of success.
Yeah,
and it's not a franchise. This is bad.
Okay. No,
it's not bad.
I think you had a podcast episode about this where franchise burnout.
Sure. Yeah.
And at this point, I'm a little burnt out with franchises. So one-off, really well crafted, standalone pieces are very welcome in my life right now, and I find that A24 leans into that. They give concepts that would be B movies the budget to make it a better than a B movie, in my opinion.
Okay.
That's almost how I feel about it.
Wait, so what would you see as a B movie that they've made? Sorry, if I'm putting you on the spot here.
I think you haven't seen Men.
I haven't seen Men. No.
It is the premise that could be a B movie.
Oh, really?
A bargain bin horror movie, perhaps, if they don't do it well.
Okay.
But it's Alex Garland.
Yeah.
And they give him enough money to make it into something that is so far beyond a B movie or what could be considered a B movie. You have to see it to get it, I think. And that being said, not everyone likes that movie. It's very divisive, and the last 20 minutes are hard to watch.
Oh, really?
But it's an Alex Garland movie.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some icky moments.
yeah. Totally.
But the icky moments, like, I'm just thinking, like, the icky moments could be so, like, campy and bad, but because A24 is like, yep, I've never worked with them. I don't know what it's like, but I imagine they're like, you want to make this project? Here's a lot of money.
Sure.
And they kind of have faith in their creatives. It feels like to me, without it having to be like the rest of their products. Like Moonlight is not Men.
Sure.
Right? Same distribution, same studio, but completely different works of art, in my opinion.
And different audiences, like different targets.
Exactly, yeah. And maybe that's the thing too. Like they're not speaking to one heart. They're speaking to a slew of different interests that
Fair enough.
I'm sure there's some intersectionality between them, but it's not like, I don't want to rag on Marvel because I like Marvel movies.
Please
like,
do it.
If you preface that you like those movies, apparently it goes well.
Yeah.
I do. I've seen like everything but the last Doctor Strange.
Okay.
So I'm like pretty up to date.
Yeah.
But I feel at this point like they're formulaic is the wrong word.
They are formulaic.
But it's like honestly, I'm just like I'm done. And I've been done for years, but I still go see them because they're entertaining. Yeah. But I'm not like walking away from those movies thinking like, I really wonder what that director was going for, or I wonder if there's more I can unpack here. Because once you, in my opinion, walk out from a Marvel movie, you're like, okay, is this one going to be related to the next one in some obtuse way?
Sure.
And they mostly are. And then like 7 movies later, they're like standing next to each other and they're like, we're friends now. We're going to save, I don't know. Like,
the world.
Whereas like A24 and like you have a copy of Midsommar there, it's like Midsommar it exists in a world of its own.
Sure.
And it's a compact, tight story that has a beginning and an end and a finality to it. Where I feel like, and Marvel knows they're doing this, they're like dangling the next movie at the end of the previous movie, and it's like, oh, I gotta do another 2.5 hours of this. Like next month. Whereas I think A24 has you can watch Minari or not. You can watch First Cow. Not many people did.
Yeah.
It was a good flick. And then you can also watch Midsommar. Yeah. Like there's a good variety, and they're all very polished products. Not all of their back catalog is.
Sure.
Barely Lethal. Haven't seen it, but I don't expect it to hold a candle to Hereditary or something.
Sure.
So I think, the back catalog, like their proven track record, I know that I'm going to get a quality product when I go to the cinema to see them. Yeah. And just the freedom I think they give to creatives, I think it's apparent on the screen. I don't know in the back rooms what's going on, and maybe they are a really hard studio to work with, but I don't see that.
I heard that Robert Eggers has done now 3 feature-length films: The Witch, Lighthouse, and Northman. Sorry,
Northman's not A24.
No, A24.
Correct. That's what I was going to say. Is that the Northman is is his first film without A24, and he talked about how the studio had to be involved. So he let go some of the final cut rights, knowing that he was walking away from A24. So just using that as an example, clearly they give their creatives far more leeway than another studio would.
And it's not just like giving them creative freedom, but it's curating the right creative people, right? Like it's not like they're just hiring a blanket group of directors and being like, here, make this movie. It's like Alex Garland makes Alex Garland movies. So we want Alex Garland. We don't want his want his
copycat.
Yeah, we want to make his movies. We want to make Greta Gerwig's movies.
Yeah,
but aren't they known for finding new people too? Or effectively they discover Robert Eggers. Like obviously he makes shorts and stuff. He has a career before.
But you have to take those chances, obviously, right? But it doesn't feel like I brought up Blumhouse earlier, but Blumhouse feels like a studio that whether or not we agree they get a little bit of play or not, they buy up rights to movies and then plug and play directors and creatives.
They find the right person for
that job,
rather than working with the creative and being like, "Well, what do you want to make?"
And
how can we help elevate it?
And that's the best way I think I was trying to say it. Is like it's nicely, finely curated.
But so, I guess my where I'm going to be cynical here is lots of studios do that. Like ultimately, and let's use Marvel. Like, I understand that ultimately some of those are very cookie cutter, but they still do find directors that they want to see some sort of vision out of. Ultimately, yeah, like this is going terribly, actually. Now that I'm saying this is not.
I don't know.
I'm not
Like
convincing
you said, Marvel.
Are you going to say like the Eternals and what's her name?
Chloe Zhao. Yeah.
Yeah.
It probably is Zhao, isn't it?
Yeah,
Zhao.
Yeah, said it wrong. Anyway.
Again, two Asians in the room. Yeah. Do we agree it's Zhao?
Yeah. Pretty hard.
But, you know, like they have lots of studios, they have an idea and they put a director into place. Like, I don't think you'd really find a studio that actively goes out of their way to say, you know, let's just get some moron behind the camera here. You know, like
it's not that it's some moron, but again, it's still a guy who's going to fit the mold of what they're looking for, right? Like if you have a script, like I think famously, I don't know if it's The Irishman or not. Now that I've said it, I think Marty's written that and had that in his back pocket. But I think it was Spielberg was supposed to direct Cape Fear.
Okay, sure.
And Marty was supposed to direct Schindler's List.
What?
Weird.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
And they made a swap for it.
Who did? The studio?
The studios and them. Like, they talked it out and all that stuff. So it just feels like... So, like... And then I don't know what I'm really trying to get at. I'm talking in circles in terms of being plug and play. And
But you feel like the A24 curates...
Yeah, so like...
a film
again, like,
to a director
no,
as opposed to...
I don't even think that. I think A24 picks a director and is like, what do you want to make?
Almost like passion projects. They're funding almost passion
so like
projects.
if you know opinion. I'm not and I know some it's not going to be blanket across the board, right?
Sure.
They didn't pick Greta Gerwig and was like, can you make, what do you want to make? And she's like, I want to make Lady Bird.
Yeah.
They probably bought the rights to Lady Bird and all that stuff, but it feels like with guys like Eggers and Garland, it's like, we buy into you, the person, the creative. What do you want to make? And they're like, these are the things we want to make. And we're like, yeah, let's do it. As opposed to having the movie and then asking them to do it.
Interesting.
It's we don't know. We don't
know.
have that.
Yeah.
But that's what
into
it feels
how
like.
works.
I think that's what makes the feel special.
Well, and for the record, just so the audience is aware, I don't know about the other guys I'm talking to here, but I have definitely looked into this and researched this.
Okay.
And the information isn't out there. So you guys saying we don't know is accurate for everyone. It's not even just like...
Yeah, sure.
Like it's literally that A24 is playing a lot of this close to the chest, which they should. Like, that makes sense for a company. So some of this is speculation. Some of this is based off of information we've pulled from, you know, various creatives that have talked generally about their process. But I get what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think I was talking to my ass a little bit there, but it just feels like if the question is what makes them feel special, I think for me it's the empowerment of the creatives inside of within the working cogs of it.
So I guess, does that make them special enough to be worth buying their merch?
Well,
for those that are only listening to this, Connor is wearing is head to toe A24 merch.
Okay, well, I'm not going to stand up because I'm wearing jeans. They don't make
No,
jeans.
he's not wearing pants at all. He's wrapped in a beach towel.
Yeah, so I do also have a beach towel. But I will say the beach towel and this sweater I'm wearing were bought by my wife because she knows I love the studio. But yeah, is it worth it? I don't know. It's a I don't know, man.
Like, outside of Marvel, I can't think of a studio creating merch like this and then selling it. Like, I would understand lots of companies create merch, then they give it away.
Honestly, okay, this is going to be, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere, but like it might be a counterculture point. Okay. It might be people who like movies but are tired of Marvel want to express the fact that, oh, I'm tuned into something different than you. And this isn't why I bought this stuff. Like, I'm not like that. Yeah. Please don't think that about me. But like, it might be that.
Me.
Because like, you know, like some people like let your freak flag fly.
Sure.
But it's like, yes, I am more highbrow than those Marvel watchers. You know, because we are right now inundated with media that is coming from mostly one company.
Yep.
I would say. Like, it's dominant.
Yeah. Disney does, I would say probably 75% of what most people consume. Yeah.
And like with media consumption, like you have to actively seek options that are not Disney. I find it's like hard to avoid them.
Yeah.
Like when you go to the theater, it's like posters everywhere. You know that they're going to be showing the next, or like that movie for the next 3 months almost. So like,
Yeah,
oh
absolutely.
my God. So I have to seek out this other media, and it's like a badge of honor, maybe. Like I have sought out this.
Gotcha.
Thank you. I have sought out this other media, and I would be sad if people thought it makes them feel or makes them better than people who haven't. But I think that could play into it. And
I think there's something to be said about wearing it and hopefully letting people know there's alternatives too.
it could be like maybe I am advertising.
Yeah,
for this.
Like you mentioned earlier, like A24 has merch, but like, and Connor and I were talking before we started, like I have Criterion on merch, I have Mondo merch, I have the Alamo Draft House merch, and that all feels like it's the same stuff, counterculture, like fringe cinema stuff, and it's not, because it's obviously mass-produced stuff still. But it's still not mass-produced to the levels of a Disney or whatever it might be, right? And that all feels part and parcel. Like when I think of A20, like that's an A24 hat. I'm like, yeah, but there's a birth, movies, death hat on the table right now, right?
So for context again as well, I want to make it very clear that when I'm talking about merch, it's A24 specific. It's not the product they make. Because you mentioned Mondo.
Yeah.
But Mondo doesn't make, or you're not buying
themselves.
Mondo posters that just say Mondo.
I'm
You're
buying buying Mondo hats and Mondo shirts though.
Okay, that's crazy, dude. Because what Mondo does is create art, and it's about pop culture. But like, that's their thing. Why are you buying the shirts that have cool stuff on it other than just their name?
Because I like.
This is a whole other thing to want to buy.
But it's not. It's not, right? Like, at the end of the day, A24 is a place that creates art that Connor enjoys, and he enjoys all of it. I enjoy everything that Mondo puts out for the most part. I enjoy all their vinyl. I enjoy all of their posters. I enjoy most of the figurines they put out, the pins. I enjoy Mondo as a company, as a producer of art. That's no different than A24.
Okay.
That's a really good way to put it, I think, because like I see people walking around with Marvel stuff on all the time, and I'm like, wow, he digs all that stuff.
What are you saying about Marvel?
Like, no, good for you. Like, I don't think the thought pattern is any different than someone who does that.
I see that. I think
Is it because Marvel's so huge and we can't ignore them that it's normal to buy that, but not normal to buy like this from a small?
I think
studio?
the
Like,
difference
not
with
everyone
Marvel
knows?
is that, first of all, it's been around for 80 years. And so I think like A24 has been
Yeah.
around for almost 10. I think it is 10 now.
10 now.
Yeah, like 2013.
2013,
2012, I
yeah.
believe is-
Really? I thought 2013 was their first year. Producing films. I believe they actually distributed a couple in 2012.
Okay.
But when they actually started actively financing was 2013. So I think part of it with Marvel is there's a bit of that, and then I think the Marvel versus DC thing is probably where some of the branding of that came out of. So people started wearing it as a more of a you took a stand in the war a bit.
This is I hate to interrupt you, but this is playing into my part of counterculture, right?
Fair enough, I guess.
If Marvel is the predominant culture going right now, A24 is the DC to Marvel's Marvel. Right?
Yeah.
It's almost the same thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough.
At least that's how I see it. I mean, I'm one person who's bought a couple pieces of merch from them. I can't explain it for everybody, but that's kind of why I believe that it has had such success. But I've also never seen anybody else walking around with an A24 hat. Like, I don't know.
My friend has her dog has an A24 collar.
Sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Why didn't you
Butland.
have him on the podcast or her on the podcast?
Why don't we have the dog on the podcast?
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
Butland is actually going to be upset about that.
How do you
now,
feel
so
about Airbag?
thank you. Have you heard of Lassie? Yeah. No, that's a good idea. We should get Taika the dog, because it's not actually the director, but no, Taika the dog on.
If you can get Taika Waititi on here, like,
We should get both.
yeah.
Which came first, chicken or the egg?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't have the energy for that, dude.
The dog or the die?
Maybe both. It just feels like a lot of energy.
Definitely not both at the same time.
Definitely not both at the same time. I just don't know if I can keep up.
Oh, fair enough. Not many can. So the other thing that I find interesting with A24 is that as far as movie studios go, I find most studios tend to pick whatever. Like they get something their way. What can I pick on? If here we go. If IFC gets an opportunity to make or to distribute Red Notice, they're gonna distribute Red Notice, right? Like I understand IFC, only basically puts out stuff like Boyhood, but if Ryan Reynolds comes their way and says, "Hey, we'll let you buy my movie with Dwayne The Rock Johnson, that's going to make money for $2 million," they're gonna snatch that up. Like they're not idiots.
Yeah.
But I don't see that with A24. And I think that's one of the things that throws me off. And a little bit of that counterculture, and frankly, a little bit of the snobbery is where I see with A24. Is I think
Couldn't
that they have...
just be integrity?
Well...
yeah, I like that word more than snobbery. I do.
Couldn't it just be integrity?
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But ultimately, let's be clear. They're in a business to make money. Connor, do you know how much your A24 hat was?
Like $25 US, I think.
Okay, $25 US for a baseball cap. I don't know. It sounds like they're in the business to make money. Is that
That's a cheap hat.
Have you bought a hat recently? They're like 45
actually.
Canadian.
Yeah.
But 25 US is like $150 Canadian.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like, this was my down payment for my house.
Plus the shipping, man.
Oh,
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I do think their habit of picking films in a particular zone, like I don't know, there is films that feel like A24 movies.
Okay.
And so I think that's, for me anyway, that's the thing that always sets them apart, is I feel like I can be watching a trailer and be like, oh yeah, this is made by A24, which is why I was like consistently shocked when I found out that The Northman isn't made by A24, even though I watched that movie and there was no A24 logo. Like,
yeah.
And basically everything A24 makes is like within the $2 million or lower budget range, and The Northman is definitely not that, and it still didn't click to me. Like, so because that just feels like it should be a part of their.
But that goes back to them picking out Eggers and being like, we want Eggers movies. So even if it feels like it's gonna feel like an A24 movie because so far that's all we know of him.
Correct.
Right?
And so I think that's part of it. It's just the fact that his first and second films are both made with A24, and then the third film still feels very much in line with that.
Yeah.
So
that's him. That's the studio allowing him to shine through in his first two films. So he has taken his artistry to a different studio, and you're still seeing him shine through. I think that speaks to how strong of a creator he is.
Absolutely.
But then also the freedom that A24 gave him. And I don't know who made The Northman.
Oh man, you're gonna put me on the spot. I'm
No,
pretty sure. I thought it was Searchlight. I thought it was Fox Searchlight, but I'm honestly not 100% positive.
Feels like a Bruckheimer production to me.
Jeez,
yeah. I saw the Bad Robot logo, so JJ Abrams was involved.
and his fingerprints all over.
Yeah.
But
J.J. Abrams, The Northman.
Yeah. Oh. And then lens flare. Yeah.
I kind of know what you mean, though, that like there are movies, and this is speaking from my experience, there are movies that exist that were not A24, but I definitely thought they were.
Yeah.
Just because of the vibe. I don't know. But just I was like, oh, that's not. It was Pig with Nick Cage. Yeah. I was like, wait, this isn't A24. Very surprising.
There's a couple of years there where, because of the popularity of things like Hereditary and Midsommar, where I thought a lot of low budget but high production looking horror / thrillers were all A24. Right? Like I thought, I don't know if it actually is or not in my mind, but like I thought Green Room was an A24 movie.
It is A24.
But it feels like an A24 movie.
It absolutely does.
So like I didn't know that for sure, and I was like, it probably is.
There's another one. It Comes at Night is released in 2017 with Joel Edgerton, and that is an A24 film, and it very much feels like it. So in terms of that atmospheric, avant-garde horror film.
Yeah. Atmospheric slow burns. That's like kind of like a cliche.
Totally.
And it does speak to a lot of A24's movies.
Like if I named like 10 movies I thought were A24, I bet you like half of them aren't. Like I said Green Room, and I'm like, It Follows. Is that an A24 movie?
I don't think so.
I don't
actually.
think so.
No.
But it could be.
I think that actually might be Bloomhouse.
Yeah. But I'm just like, but like it easily could fit in there seamlessly. You know, so like I think for a couple years there, I was confused as to what was what wasn't, because I thought the quality of movie that I think A24 pushes those smaller studios to put out, because they're so successful at what they do, started bleeding into other people's products, and you're just like, oh, I don't know who's making what anymore.
So is A24 just a modern day Miramax?
Right out of the gate.
But truly though, because
I
you look at in terms of them effectively discovering Eggers and Ariosto, Miramax discovers, oh God, I can't believe I'm putting these two of these people in the same sentence, Tarantino and Kevin Smith. But they do, and so Miramax makes those creatives who they are. But in particular Tarantino. And in a lot of ways, Tarantino makes Miramax. Yeah. It goes hand in hand. But, are we talking the same thing here?
Only time will tell. You don't.
Fair enough.
We don't know.
I think the roots of it are there in terms of the creative freedom, in terms of the quality of the movie to begin with. Like, again, we talked about it earlier where A24 is a little bit Oscar baity.
Yeah,
and that's the Miramax way, at least in my mind. The old school Miramax was.
Mm-hmm. Mallrats was a really Oscar baity movie.
We just keep coming back to that guy too. You have one episode, and then it kind of evolves into something a little bit more. And I think A24 has recognized it a little bit earlier that they need to do more, which is fine, which is great. Sure, because you're in the business of making money. But, to try to keep that creative integrity, to make Oscar baity stuff, and to make successful films all at once, and you can do both, and they've done both, which is astounding. And to keep that quality, but I don't know that Miramax maintains that all the way through.
I agree. Obviously the Weinstein stuff, Harvey ruins a lot of that. And I don't actually know any of the executives involved with A24.
Not a one.
By name, yeah. So I think the fact that Harvey was known fairly quickly once Miramax started being a thing as an individual, first of all, shows their incredible rise, but secondly, shows how toxic he was as a person. I think his fame... aside from all the obvious toxicity from him, but I think his ego and fame became a big part of...
He needed his name to be out there.
Absolutely. That was a big part of the company. Yeah. While I'm not seeing that with A24 guys, especially considering they've had a killer decade.
Man. Yeah.
It even just, first of all, popularity-wise, but secondly, they have made money and consistently made money.
Yeah, the last 5 years have been incredible.
Yeah. I did dig into their budget. Or their financials, and there is a couple of years where they've lost cash, but overall they're well in the black. They're doing great.
It's all this money I'm spending to look this way.
It's all the merch.
Oh shit! That guy bought a hat again.
Ding ding.
Puts us in the group.
It's a bonus for everyone.
Quick, call Greta Gerwig. We can make another movie.
We can finally greenlight Lady Bird 4.
Yeah, Lady Bird 4. Oh man!
My god!
Speaking of, is Barbie a A24 production? Because it better be.
I don't think it is.
There's no way. There's zero chance.
I would see it if it was.
Oh, I'm gonna see it.
I'm gonna see it.
Sure.
You see that picture? You see that picture of Gosling?
Oh, I saw the picture of Gosling. I saw the picture of Gosling.
Go.
Yeah. Incredible. So the other thing I find interesting about them is their marketing.
Okay.
So while I was doing a little bit of research, I found out that Spring Breakers is in a lot of ways been credited as the first truly social media marketed movie.
Which is an insane thing to think about.
Yeah. Crazy things how things have changed.
Yeah.
Given that Facebook was actually made in 2008, wasn't it?
Facebook was 05 or 06.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, but even then, 2013 is when that's finally being used properly. For films anyway. Yeah. It's a whole nightmare, dude. Who knows?
I'm thinking YouTube. But...
no, you're probably right, actually. Anyway, sorry. No,
that's on me. That's on me.
Time is hard. We agree. We're getting old.
The second guess.
Let's not talk about it.
I derailed the whole thing.
Yeah. But I find them really interesting too, because there's plenty of movies they've made that are dirt cheap to make, and they clearly do not market them. So I find they clearly pick their favorites. So, you know, they'll make, based on the info I had pulled, call it an average of 10 movies a year. It goes up and down as much as few as 4, as many as 18. That's
18.
crazy, right? But we don't see marketing for A24 films. So as a good example, in 2021 they had 8 films out, and the only one, now that I am saying this, I'm going to be proven wrong, but the only A24 movie I actively remember being marketed was The Green Knight.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I
don't even remember it being
my memory's
marketed.
crap.
Yeah. But I actively remember that one. Sorry, Minari came out that same year, and there was a little bit of marketing around Minari. But I just
post-Oscar bait? Like post-Oscar noms?
No. So when it first came out, there was some marketing. Okay. But post-Oscars, definitely the tick goes way up because they get the nomination and stuff. But I find them interesting because I don't think many, like, again, we talk about Marvel, they don't pick their favorites when it comes to marketing. You know, all those movies are basically marketed the same. They
have so much money, though.
Oh, and I know it's comparing apples and oranges, right? Like, you can't really put them side by side. But I think a lot of studios tend to do a marketing blitz fairly similarly. While A24 is very selective. They have their favorites, and they're like, we're gonna push this one like crazy, and then, you know, Red Rocket can just go and die in a hole.
That's a very good example. Yeah.
But I because we've talked about this a lot in terms of financials and all that stuff, and we won't get into all that stuff now. But it seems to me, if the point of it is to make money and to kind of increase your brand, to have 1 or 2 movies a year do really well in the theater, to make cheap movies that probably do pretty decent on streaming.
Fair enough.
Right? So if you can have an Everything Everywhere All at Once do gangbusters in the theater, then you can have 6 or 7 movies made for like $300,000 go straight to streaming and have a presence there still. And and that stuff doesn't need to be advertised because people are going to find it regardless of whatever it might be.
Well, and that's a great point. Is no one, like, Red Rocket is not a movie that's for everyone.
Yeah.
And not even really a movie that's even for a lot of film lovers.
Yeah.
Like, has anyone here seen that movie?
I've never seen it.
Yeah. None of us have.
I want to see it. Now that you bring it up, I kind of forgot that existed.
Well, and the guy got nominated.
Yeah.
The lead got nominated for the Oscars, and still didn't. Not a wiggle for the 3 of us. No. So, you know.
Didn't push the needle.
Yeah.
Talking about Red Rocket and saying not a wiggle.
Yeah, that was intentional. So I find that all really interesting that they, but you're totally right. That if you have one that knocks it out of the park, you can have 8 that don't.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly. And it's not even knocking out the park, right? Like, at the end of the day, if you're making stuff and it's $300,000 and you make 6 of them, that's still what, $1.8 million? Is my math right?
Sorry, I kind of blanked out.
3 times 6?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So in my mind, if Everything Everywhere All at Once it pulls in $50 million on a profit, I don't know if that number is real. It seems like it made a ton of money.
It did make a ton of money for sure.
Then they've paid for those other 8 movies or 6 movies
handily.
Hand over fist. Yeah. And then now it's on streaming, and they'll still make money in spite of themselves on top.
Yeah, and fair point. I'm
curious to know what the other movies were in 2021 now. Just for my own, to know,
crap.
You know? If you didn't write them down, that's fine. I can look them up later.
Oh, yeah. I've only got 8.
Now I want to know.
I've got 8. Oh, no, sorry. I have a couple. They did 8 that year, and we had Minari, Green Knight, Tragedy of Macbeth. And there was actually some push for Tragedy.
Yeah, there was a push for Tragedy of Macbeth.
Now, the difference on that one, though, is Apple Plus bought it. Or Apple TV, sorry.
So there you go. Right?
So they bought it, and I think the only marketing push I saw was after they purchased it. So I don't know if A24 did any marketing for Tragedy of Macbeth, and then it was only once it got
cast
picked
on that
up.
Movie too.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And they put out Shang-Chi last year, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Sorry, Marvel. Okay, wait, hold on.
Huge.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Monsters.
So you guys mentioned creative integrity earlier. And Connor, you
I
mentioned.
immediately feel like a snob now, though.
Oh,
Yeah,
right,
I know.
right?
I hate like saying these words coming out of my mouth. It's like
It's such a weird way of discussing it, and without coming off like it's.
You're gonna feel worse in just a second.
Okay,
So,
okay, lay it on us. Come on.
Connor, you mentioned barely lethal earlier. So,
That's a joke.
do you think that, for context, for those that don't know, Barely Lethal is a 2015 film distributed and produced by A24 that stars Haley Steinfeld and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
Haley Steinfeld is a secret agent. And
She just wants to have a normal life.
yeah. So it's exactly what you think it is.
Yeah.
Does that erode A24's creative integrity?
No.
You don't think so at all?
I don't think so. Not everything's going to be a hit. Not everything's going to, like, I don't know who directed that or who made that
I have
movie,
no
but maybe
idea,
they
yeah.
were just itching to make that movie, and A24 was like, I'll throw a couple of shekels at it, and then they did.
There's no way that costs just a couple shekels.
Well, maybe that's the turning point, right? Like 2015 seems to be right before their big boom. So
Yeah,
I wonder if it's one of those things where they took a chance on something and it didn't exactly pay off, and they realized, oh man, that's not our move. That isn't in our. That's not what we're about.
And then they did Moonlight.
Yeah.
Like right after.
And then right after they start the A24 that we know and think about.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right.
Like they make Barely Lethal the same year they make Ex Machina, so they know
Yeah.
what they're doing.
Yeah,
sort of.
they're-
I'm not trying to defend them.
No, I'm just
But
saying.
They owed somebody a favor.
In my mind, I'm just trying to think of the logic.
Yeah.
Right, because it is a sore thumb. Like,
It's very
sticks-
That one
strange.
does not fit. I will say
Yeah.
that. Like, I have seen some other A24 movies that I personally did not like,
Yeah.
but they still felt like an A24 movie. That movie feels very not. It doesn't fit. Like,
Well,
it doesn't fit with their stable of other movies.
It's the example I mentioned earlier, where if IFC gets approached by Ryan Reynolds to distribute Red Notice, they're going to say yes, and I think that's what happened here. Like, I can't imagine it worked any other way, because it doesn't fit with their type of films. It doesn't fit with their kind of branding.
So you're saying Samuel L. Jackson walked up to them and paid them?
No, not at all. But Samuel L. Jackson was like, no one wants this garbage movie. How about you give me $1 million and you guys can
He
put
was
it out?
just in it. He didn't have anything to do with making it.
It sounds like he paid for it.
Yeah, it was on his dime. He just wanted to hang out with Haley Steinfeld.
It's like if you give us enough to finance Moonlight, we'll make this. We'll distribute this stupid movie for you.
Yeah. And it's like, how much you need for Moonlight? And they're like, I don't know, $30,000. And they're like, he's like, done. Yeah, no problem. Pocket change.
But yeah, I mean, it doesn't diminish the rest of their success, I think.
Okay, fair enough.
Especially if it's one movie out of a catalog of
You're gonna
whatever
bring
it
up
might
Thor,
be. Right?
The Dark World.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Fair enough. That doesn't diminish all of the MCU because they made
almost
a couple bad
did.
ones.
Yeah, there's your answer.
They've made about 120 if I'm looking at this and
Yeah.
calculating in my head fast enough.
And obviously, I haven't watched all of them, but if we so far can only pick out one that doesn't fit that library, that's pretty good.
Yeah, they're kind of slaying still.
Yeah.
And even the ones that do fit that tone and the stable of, oh, this is an A24 movie, not all of them are good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can we talk?
Objectively good.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the tone and stuff like that? Like we
The which?
the tone and the feel of an A24 movie.
Absolutely.
Because we've mentioned it a bunch of times, but I don't know if we've gone through it for anybody who might not know what that is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like how would you describe it? Like, what do you see as a?
Well, like I said,
Stereotype.
when I was talking about it earlier, and I there was a couple of years there where I associated them almost strictly with slow burn horror. Like, what is that called? The folk horror is what they're kind of calling it, like that kind of stuff. So in my mind, that's the stuff I was associating it with. So I the stuff that I liked that was A24 that I didn't know was A24. So I don't know if I'm the right person to ask because I have a really skewed idea of what it was.
So I think the problem is that I think in a lot of cases, if you asked an average person, or maybe not even an average person, I don't know if an average person would know what A24 is. But if you asked, like I think true film bros, huge A24 guys, the guys you find on Reddit under the A24 subreddit,
They have their own subreddit.
Oh yeah, oh they do.
Do they?
Yeah.
Is it a good one?
I have not explored far. I'll be honest. I just can't
Yikes.
imagine that people that are really on that are.
The snobbery.
Yeah. I think it's kind of toxic, probably.
It's the internet.
Yeah. Oh yeah. But so the people I think that associate themselves as true huge fans of A24, I think they're looking at Midsummer as a
The Blueprint?
A24 movie. Yeah, or Hereditary probably.
That's the
honestly.
Hereditary is the one that I
is the
hold
big
up and be
one.
like, that's to me the prototypical A24 movie.
Sure.
But I think that's just because it had so much success.
And that's
I
exactly
agree.
it. It's purely a perception thing on my end.
Yeah.
Right?
Because there's only like half a dozen of those kinds of movies
horror,
they've made.
like let's call them horror movies.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah.
that is not their bread and butter.
Definitely
I would
not.
say.
Yeah.
They're very good at it, like as evidenced by Midsummer and Hereditary. X, I've heard was really good. I haven't seen it. And Men.
Yep.
What else? There's probably
It Comes at Night.
Yeah.
It was a slow burn kind of horror.
That was early on.
Green Room is I would say it's a horror, more of a slasher maybe, but still in the it fits in the overall arc. But like that's kind of it.
Yeah.
You know?
But the success of those was so massive that's what I immediately think of when you ask about A24. And that's to say, like, and I love things like Lady Bird and whatnot, but I never associate the two.
Well, and interestingly, like there's a I don't know if you guys have seen it. I happen to love it, but there's a movie called The Spectacular Now with Miles Teller that I adore.
Yeah.
And A24 made that.
Didn't know.
And
that movie.
it's a teen. I would call it maybe a dramedy. I don't even know if it might just be a drama.
Yeah.
And it doesn't exactly seem to, like it's in the Lady Bird area.
Yeah.
You know, like it's similar there. So it definitely fits A24 in those ways. But I agree with you that I think that they've in some ways become associated with the horror, even though it's really not their shtick.
Yeah.
You know.
To the point where I'm like I have moments where I confuse, like, because I'm not a big horror guy in terms of like following it. Not like I like the genre. I'm just terrible at watching them. But like for a lot of years I thought like the Hereditary stuff was like part and parcel in that Insidious universe.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Because they feel the
Similar.
same-ish, and they all come out the same time-ish and all that stuff, which again leads to the Blumhouse stuff. Like it just feels like Blumhouse walked so A24 could run, kind of a thing. You know?
So I did a little bit of digging into Blumhouse because I was trying to look for studios that are similar, modern studios. Because again, I think Miramax was a bit of its own thing. And there is a few in particular for Blumhouse that really stand out to me that could theoretically be like A24 quality. So I see Creep is a movie that was made by the Duplass brothers. Sinister, I think is...
part of that universe as well.
Yeah, and you know, you throw Ethan Hawke in a movie, it's like you're automatically going to get a little bit of an artsier crowd, you know? Paranormal Activity, I would argue the first one. Like, unfortunately, I think those two words are now kind of associated with trash, like low budget, trashy horror films. But that first one is obviously very, very low budget, ultra low budget. But
it was a phenomenon when it came out.
Absolutely. And it literally changed how movies were made.
Absolutely.
So I think that could be shoved in that same area. And then the big one is Get Out. That's
a Blumhouse one.
That's a Blumhouse.
Yeah, see, like stuff like that.
But the thing is that outside of those four movies, all of it's, you know,
B-grade stuff.
B-grade horror schlock.
Absolutely.
It's exactly what you'd expect. I think most of those Insidious films are...
carry the weight of the success.
Yeah, like and all the spin-offs, you know, Annabelle.
Oh, right.
The Nun and stuff. Yeah, because there are 2 Annabelle movies too. Like, I think all of that's Blumhouse stuff. And that's when if you start throwing terms like creative integrity around, I can't associate that with that studio.
Maybe the difference here is that, like, maybe I was alluding to it earlier, where A24 doesn't have a franchise.
Yep.
They don't have something that they're cranking out because they know
Didn't we just talk about Lady Bird 4?
But do you think they don't have a franchise because they actively don't want one, or because nothing's worked out that way?
I have no clue.
Yeah.
Like, could they make a Hereditary 1 or 2 and 3? Probably.
I haven't
the way
seen
it ends.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? Like, they could, but they haven't. Right, they let Ari Aster move on and work on Midsummer, and they haven't like given it to some other horror director. So I don't know. Like,
I feel like it's also hard to compare. It feels like yes, there are two studios, lower studios that are kind of made their name doing these movies, but I think comparing A24 to a studio that strictly does horror, because I know horror studios work on small budgets for small returns.
Sure.
So pumping out $50,000, $100,000 B grade crap is the point. Of Blumhouse.
Sure, absolutely.
Right? So again, if you can pump out an Insidious movie every year to make up for the other 20 movies that you just shat out. That's the business plan.
It's probably a good business model. Like objectively, they're making money. So
like, is Blumhouse still around making movies?
Absolutely.
And I think they keep getting franchise. They keep trying to buy up franchises. I think the last time I heard, they didn't get it because of the Fox stuff with Disney, but they were actively trying to get Predator.
Oh,
and stuff. But obviously that didn't work out. But
I mentioned IFC earlier, and
that would be a big thing for them right now.
No, it's literally just that the name's easy to say, and people might they've been around for a while, so people are probably familiar. So I decided to pick on them. But they're strange. Like they have a few that would match the A24 vibe. Hunger. I think it's 2008. It's the made by Steve McQueen, the director, not the actor, and oh my God, Michael Fassbender. Boyhood. Oh crap, the Alfonso Cuarón one that I asked you how to pronounce beforehand, and then I'm gonna screw up.
Oh no, you got me drawing a blank. E2
Mama Tambian.
Yeah.
E2 Mama Tambian. Blue is the warmest color.
Yeah.
All of those things sort of seem like those, like it would be A24. And interestingly, all of them came out before A24 existed.
Yeah.
And so IFC still puts out, like it's literally called the Independent Film Company. But they are far more indie than A24. Like a lot of the stuff they put out is not being shown in theaters. Well, I find this stuff that I've just mentioned was actually things that made it bigger. And I think A24's basically just stolen all that. And so they basically just took that chunk and went, we don't want the really, really low budget indie stuff. We want the really, like the stuff that will be successful, but it's going to cost a little bit more. And so I think they've just grabbed it all from IFC. And now IFC's stuck with whatever else, Also, but at the same time, they made Human Centipede. So I'm just saying, creative integrity again. Like,
I think what's interesting is like when you talk about the similarities between IFC and A24, you're at the end of the day, you're just naming Oscar baity movies, which is now we've kind of synonymously associated with A24. But other than Quran, there at some point, those movies aren't hand in hand mentioned with their creatives, and the A24
Hunger would be
Hunger,
Steve
sure,
Queen,
I think Hunger is,
but it's not across the board. Whereas I think with A24,
enough.
like going back to that creative partnership, all those movies are somebody's movies. When we talk about Lady Bird,
they're big ones in particular.
Yeah.
Like obviously, we're gonna be like I could give you right now. I could give you a dozen that we wouldn't know the creative.
Sure.
But you're right. The big ones like. Again, the fact that people actually know who Ari Aster is now, the fact that people know
2 movies.
who...
Yeah,
exactly.
2 movies in. Like,
Eggers is the same
Eggers
thing,
is the same deal.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, A24 is the reason we have Denis Villeneuve.
With Enemy, right?
Yeah.
So, like, that's huge.
He would have been amazing regardless.
Oh,
that man can do no wrong.
That's an episode.
Oh, yeah, no kidding.
Seriously.
Another one I had was Bleecker Street. They have their own little... So they put out Lost City of Z, Captain Fantastic, Logan Lucky, and Leave No Trace, featuring the incredible and underrated Ben Foster.
Ben Foster is amazing.
Oh,
that movie is... Oh, man, that tugs on the heartstrings.
Ben Foster slays in everything.
Yeah.
Like
just one of the most absolute underrated actors in ever.
Yep.
Ever.
You can hate him, and then the next movie, love him.
Yep.
Like, he has range. That guy has range. Ben Foster episode. Ben Foster
Oh
episode.
yeah, no kidding.
It's actually been discussed. We've talked about
multiple
it.
times.
Multiple
Yeah.
times.
Okay, so Bleecker Street.
But again, Bleecker Street falls prey to, and I for whatever reason didn't write any examples down, but they fall prey to they get handed something cheap and something potentially popular, and they put that out. So then their name is potentially stained by, their version of barely lethal.
Yeah.
So
You
why? Okay, so if we're throwing all this stuff around, what's A24 doing that makes them immune to that?
Well, first of all, they're definitely not immune to it. They literally did barely lethal already. So, but if they've only had one, while the rest of these, if I do some digging, they clearly have lots. They have a skeleton, or a skeleton full of closets.
But you,
Yes.
But you mentioned possibly 120 movies, and we keep circling back to maybe the same. 20.
Yeah.
So there's 100 movies there
Yeah.
that we have no idea about. So why are they immune to the idea that they're all successes or any of that stuff?
I wonder if it has to do with the success of the ones that are like Oscar baity and are very successful, just stand out so far above anything that Blumhouse or Bleecker Street has made that they're completely out of that pool of, if we're going to mention other studios, IFC. Like the stuff that they've made and done well has just been so much more successful and like critically loved than anything else that like then the lows aren't so low.
Yeah,
there's that. But I just imagine, like, if in my mind I'm like, if blue is the warmest color was an A24 movie, how much bigger would that movie be?
I don't
and that's
see it.
that's
I don't
hearsay
know.
and all that stuff,
Yeah.
obviously. But I just imagine if blue is the warmest color is as successful as it is, if it's as good as it is, and is still Oscar worthy, but it's an A24 movie, what's that success look like as opposed to it being where it is now?
Like, and I guess that's fundamentally what this conversation comes down to, is that what does A24 provide that another studio doesn't?
And is it a tangible thing? Because it feels like we keep talking around it and not pinpointing it, because there's a lot of reasons why. But what is the special thing? Like, I don't know what the magic ingredient is.
I think some of it's good marketing. Like, I think they do have a good drive marketing wise, and it, like Connor mentioned right from the beginning, they know how to pick films. So they pick films that they or pick people. But they have built a brand that is reliable. And so if blue is the warmest color is distributed by them, people then maybe rely on reliability in the way that they didn't with IFC. I don't know.
Well, the idea that we would be talking about if blue is the warmest color is an A24 movie, we'd be talking about why blue is the warmest color is an A24 movie. But we are never going to have that discussion about why blue is the warmest color is an IFC movie. That's the thing, right? Like, that's that weird intangible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
a super
What
strange
makes
thing.
blue is the warmest color in IFC movie? Like, there's no answer.
And
Discussion.
and to me, the idea that we talked, there's again 120 movies. We talk about the success of maybe 20 of them. So we're still hitting at like a 30% rate or whatever it might be.
No,
Less than that. 15, like 15, 17% or something like that.
And for the record, I honestly think the success rate is far higher. Than
Sure.
I actually have I have 30 written down here. I just haven't said a number of them because the ones we've hit have been more popular.
Sure.
And even then, I picked ones that were really Oscar baiting.
Yeah.
Well, I recognized a whole hell of a lot.
Yeah,
I haven't even mentioned Room, and everyone
There's
everyone
the
knows
elf
that
in the
movie,
room. Room.
Yeah, I'd love to see what the that number actually is. I mean, we'll do that afterwards and we'll figure it out. But that's where I'm like, wow, why are they basically bulletproof at this point?
I don't know if they're bulletproof though. To be honest,
It feels like they are. It feel like
have you seen Lamb?
But it's the thing.
I have not. Oh,
It's being nominated or was nominated for a foreign language picture.
Oh,
I
wow.
think. Yeah, but it's like
bad.
it almost plays into the tropes of like the conversation we're having, like the slow burn, almost like the ambiguity that we have with some A24 movies. Like it leans into it almost too much, and it is becoming almost a parody of an A24 movie.
Oh,
but
wow.
it is made by A24, so it's like, oh damn, like
But again, if it's not a good movie and it's still being nominated for stuff, that means it's bulletproof.
Well,
yeah, that's a good point. Very good point.
And this is in the comparison to Miramax. My understanding is what that studio did really well was know how to sell movies, and like sell movies to award shows and to
Their
festivals.
release schedule was so impeccable. Like knowing when to release their movies.
Oh, yeah.
The season and all that stuff.
But they knew how to get on the road and talk to the right people, shake the right hands. And I think that's similar to what A24 is. Like, so the fact that Lamb is being talked about is because they knew which palms to grease, who to talk to, which hands to put it in, as opposed to, I don't know, literally any other studio that missed some of those things. But I don't see those contacts and those that know-how being the reason they're as successful as they are from a public perception point of view.
Yeah, it's very strange to me because when we started this as a topic, and you told me this is what we wanted to do, and I'm like, I don't know, do we have enough to talk about? And as the conversation keeps going, I am flabbergasted at the actual success and the reasonings because it makes no sense now.
It absolutely makes no sense. And again, especially considering just how many studios there are, and the success rates of those other studios.
Yeah, and so much of it is confusing to me. Like I said before, movies I didn't know were A24. The success of the ones that are, the success of the movies that aren't A24 that I thought were A24. Is so wrapped up in this weird magical production company, and I had no idea how kind of pervasive it was.
And I think it's interesting now that we're sort of at this point too. We've mentioned the Northman a couple times, because they knew when to walk away from Eggers. He came to them and said, "I have this project I want to do. It's going to be a massive Viking epic. I need $90 million." And they went, "Find it somewhere else, buddy." And they made this guy basically, but they told him, and the two movies that he had already put out were hits. They had made them lots of money, but they were also willing to go, "We know our limits," and they walked away saying, $90 million is not an A24 film.
They didn't just put everything on the table and say, "Do it."
Yeah, and I kind of think
that's interesting.
When you think about Miramax, that's what they kept doing with Tarantino. And obviously it paid off for them. But that's scary, and it's crazy to think that Eggers could have been A24's Tarantino, and they let him leave.
But that's the creative integrity thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. It seems like they maybe we're talking all on like hypotheticals. We have no way. We're Hollywood outsiders.
Yeah.
We don't live in Hollywood.
Yeah.
We have no idea. I don't know anyone who works in Hollywood. But it seems like maybe they felt we're becoming the studio of Eggers, or we're becoming too on brand with that kind of movie. Let's let the bird fly.
Yeah.
Let's focus on what we're really good at and spread the love a little bit.
Fair enough.
I mean, there's something to be said about
it could
being so strong-willed enough to be like, number one, we'll never spend that much money. And number two, no one creative is going to be bigger than the studio. We won't be defined by a name, and which is basically what they said when he was like, "You got to go." That's not it. We're not going to give you 90. We wouldn't give you 50. Yeah,
that's the thing. As far as I know, and I didn't actually look specifically. I might have already mentioned this episode, so I apologize. But their most expensive movie is $15 million. 1.5.
Oh my god!
I think, and
I thought
that's the most
Everything Everywhere All at Once had 25. I thought
it might be, So to be honest,
their biggest.
But even then,
so to ask for
that's
3 times,
ridiculous.
to ask for more than 3 times as much.
Yeah,
yeah. So again,
artistic integrity.
Yeah, I mean, and so it's one of those things where Miramax becomes synonymous with Tarantino because they let him take over it. Not take over, but it's
But he did.
He did it. Yeah. And I think these guys are sat down and was like, nah, it's not going to happen. Nobody's going to be bigger than the studio, and we're never going to pay that much for a movie.
It's like they want room to be able to give other creatives a chance.
Because $90 million is probably 4 years worth of movies for them, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's a lot of money. Yeah.
Or at least a whole year.
A year.
And that's massive. And to bet that much on a project, because again, they've had years they've lost money.
Sure.
So guaranteed there is individual projects that they're like, ugh, that was a bad call,
Okay.
So, and, Pig might, or not Pig, Lamb might be one of those. See these two farm animal movies. Damn it.
Here's a hypothetical for you, though. If The Northman is an A24 movie, is it a success?
I don't think so.
No?
No.
You don't think they would have marketed it differently?
You don't think...
I absolutely think they would market it differently. I think that movie is too expensive. I think that well, let's be really clear. The Witch and The Lighthouse did not make $90 million. Nowhere near.
No.
And the two of them combined didn't make it. Effectively, The Northman is a continuation of what Eggers was already doing with those two films. So the reach just simply isn't there. So I loved the hell out of that movie. And I'm so glad it was made. But it was a bad call financially for someone to make that. Let him do it. Because there's not enough wide appeal.
There's a wider appeal than the other two movies, though.
Absolutely there is.
Right.
But
that's a big jump.
But a huge jump.
Yeah.
And like I would be surprised if The Witch had a budget much higher than $2 million.
That's fair.
You know?
You don't need a lot of money to make The Witch.
Absolutely, you don't. Anya Taylor-Joy, she's probably fairly unknown by that point still.
Yeah, at that time she's
sorry, I don't know the other names, but there's a few people in there that are fairly prominent actors. You know, like some of the talent I could see.
The mom from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Robin Aaron. I forget her name.
Yeah, couldn't tell you. And the guy that plays the father in the family, he's also fairly well known. And again, they could have just taken a pay cut, lower than they normally would have, and that happens fairly regularly on smaller films. But even so, I could see that being a good chunk of their budget. But you're right, you don't need much more beyond that.
Look at the color palette of that movie.
Yeah,
it's gray.
Yeah.
Okay, so another hypothetical. Do you think A24 was like, can you make it for 20?
Oh, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure that conversation took place.
Yeah, because I would be surprised if they let him leave. Yeah,
yeah.
Like if they invited him to leave.
And you don't think that movie could have been made for $20 million?
Not. It's not what we saw for sure. There is a version of that movie that could be made for $20 million.
There's a movie with Mads Mikkelsen where he plays a Viking slave.
Valhalla Rising.
Yes, that to me was pretty similar to it. Obviously, it's a very different track than that, but it shows that was a low budget movie.
Yeah,
it shows that it could be done. Yeah. Maybe to not, because the Northman is very sprawling, right?
Yep.
The different climates they go to and everything. The set pieces that they interact with are big.
Yep.
Very big.
And it would be hard to have a film set on them. Like a film crew would be difficult. And,
they're remote.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so the cost goes way
expensive. Yeah.
And he shot with one camera, and it was still $90 million.
One camera. That's the crazy thing to me too. Is we were talking about this earlier, just how intentional every single shot in that movie is. It's like, dude, hire a second unit. I understand it's more money, but
one unit and it was already $90 million, and we're not going to get any cheaper than that. Then I guess.
Yeah. There's your answer.
Not for that. Yeah. Not for what we saw. Again,
Valhalla
Rising. It's possible for there to be a Viking epic made for a cheaper budget, but not what we saw.
Yeah.
The last thought I wanted to put in here, and then obviously you guys say whatever you need to or want to, but I wanted to just plug Neon. They're a fairly new up-and-coming studio. I think they have the potential to walk in A24's footsteps here. Because from what I've seen from them so far, there hasn't been any... they're very similar to A24 in that they're not selling out. It doesn't seem like there's any loss of creative integrity. The big ones that I saw from them, or we've seen from them so far, are Pig, Parasite, Spencer, Flea, which was an animated film that was nominated for... Best Foreign Language or Best International Film, and Best Picture at this past Oscars. I, Tonya, and Palm Springs.
Palm Springs.
Palm Springs is incredible.
So good.
Yeah, that's a pretty good track record.
Yeah. So I think they're a studio worth watching in the same way that A24 is.
I would throw Braun out there as well.
Oh, yeah. Right? I didn't look into Braun. I
can't know off the top of my head Braun, but I remember seeing their title card and being like, I like what they do. Mm-hmm. I don't know, sorry audience for not knowing exactly all that stuff, but I think Braun maybe falls into that, it's like an adjacent to Neon. Or maybe they're more established than Neon, because I know they've been active for.
But even
longer.
when
they've been longer, yeah.
Even when we're talking about that list of movies you just named off of Neon, it doesn't feel like they all belong. Like if you didn't tell me they were all from the same studio, I wouldn't guess that. Right?
I'd be okay with it up to until Palm Springs. Yeah. I think they're all very similar. Palm Springs is different, but I would see that. I think Everything Everywhere All at Once is a bit of an outlier when you consider the Lighthouse, Uncut Gems, Minari.
Yeah, but they also did Swiss Army Man. A24 Swiss Army Man.
Fair enough. I'm just saying that I think there's similarities in terms of there being outliers.
I think, maybe our sample sizes are different here.
Much smaller.
Yeah, and I think that's maybe my final thought would be it's incredible to me to sit here and kind of understand that there's a studio with an identity. Like a true identity. And I know studios have that. Like, again, I made fun of Bruckheimer stuff, and then there's a style of film that dude makes.
There's a difference, though, because that he is ultimately a creative. Yes. Even though he has a company, he's not.
Yeah. So it's really cool to sit here and talk about a thing that I didn't really understand existed until pretty much this hour.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Insane.
That's great. We got to watch more movies then. A24 movies. Starting with that one.
I think that's pretty much the best way we can end this, right? Like, there's no way. We're not getting a better send-off than we got to watch more movies, right? Any other final thoughts, or we got to watch more movies?
Yeah, I think you got to watch more movies. A24 movies, specifically. No more Marvel for you, sir.
Yeah, well, you have to watch 3 A24 movies for every Marvel movie you watch.
Ooh, that's kind of a rule of thumb that I follow, to be honest.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like, if I'm going to
3
the theater,
for me, 1 for them.
Yeah, I'm like, if I'm going to throw any money at House of Mouse, I better give A24 their due.
Fair enough. Okay.
I think that might be the ratio that I'm at, like I'm working at right now.
I'll commit to 3 A24 movies before I watch Thor: Love and Thunder.
Well, that one you get a pass on, because I'm excited for that one.
We're loud on that one.
Because it sounds like Taika might be an A24 guy. he'd fit the mold for sure.
Yeah, they're just begging. They're like, come on, Taika.
Yeah, it looks like he's got some black and white shots in this movie. So, oh man, perfect.
Oh man.
Yeah. Connor, I'm sure we'll see you again, but thanks for staying on the show, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun.